Thanks, Sean. Normally, like you mentioned, I talk normally about internet marketing, so this is going to be fun talking about some of the inner secrets to personal achievement, and that's really where you center yourself and where you've led so many people. And why don't we start with what you say, that there's only 3 problems, and I totally agree that there's only 3 problems in the world, and what we come about into, it's either money, health, or relationship related. And what are some of the ways that people can deal with those problems, or what they see or what they perceive to be problems?
I think I like to use examples when I explain some of these things. And when I mentioned there are only 3 problems, that's how we would divide them: money, health, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a part of a whole gestalt, if you will, because when you boil them down, they just come down to being only one problem, but that's for another book one day.
Okay.
But we'll deal with the 3 problems. The reason problems become confusing is because whenever we get too involved in one of them, whether it be health or money or relationships, we start breaking down the problem into a million little mini problems, instead of staying focused on the source that could solve these problems. Let me give you an example. Let's say all of a sudden my microwave doesn't work.
Right.
And I start taking it apart to see why doesn't it work, and I get tired, I can't fix it. I come upstairs to look at my television, and the television doesn't work, and I'm getting more confused now and more puzzled. And then I decided to turn the light bulb on, turn on the lights, and the lights don't work. This is what happens. Really, what may have happened was just one problem. The electrical switch tripped. The breaker took off all the electricity. But here I go to all these little problems, trying to open up the television, trying to change the bulbs and so forth. And so we do that with our problems, and in so doing, we lose sight of really what the problem is. And once we get a feel for what it is, we can solve it by creating the conditions in which the problem solves itself. Instead of getting a hammer and a saw and trying to fix the breaker, you just push one switch.
Well, is that, would you say, a driving philosophy for you, that people make it harder on themselves than they have to?
I've always believed that. I've seen it in my corporate work, which was at some substantial levels in New York, and in my other work and my teachings and so forth. People really complicate it, not because people are silly, but because they get caught up in a web of fear, and they are hypnotized into believing something is going wrong. It happens to all. I've seen it happen to some of the masters of this stuff. It happened to me when I got ill a few years ago, and you remember a part of that.
Right.
I was so concerned about it, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this? It's so horrible. I could hardly walk. I could hardly see. Am I losing everything now? And I got caught up in it, and I got caught up in the doctor's situation, because every pill they gave me, I took. Everything they wanted me to do, I did, and I was so scared and fearful and hypnotized into believing that's the way to go. The minute I started doing what I teach people to do, which are actually the principles of the power pause, I stepped back, looked at what was happening, realizing that this health thing is basically an illusion. The same power that could solve the problems of outer space could solve the problems of what I'm dealing with. And so I went into a quiet and a silence, and I created in my mind the conditions that permitted the cells to do their work, the enzymes to work properly, and a whole new body was formed. My doctor to this day can't believe it. And whenever she sees me, she points to her head and says, I know, you don't need my medicines, you use something up there, which isn't totally correct either. But it's just a method of problem solving, which I find being much more creative than any of the others.
And, you and I have talked privately about that, and you told me that you believe that one of the reasons that you got in such dire straits with your health was because when you're teaching about these three different problems that you wanted to experience, or some part of you wanted to experience,